Welcome to the KP Podcast, where we talk about the business of real estate. A podcast about leveraging opportunities, growing your business, and experiencing financial freedom. Here are your hosts, Keith Anderson and Peter Cambucos.
Hey everyone, welcome back to the KP Podcast. We're coming to you from the studio here in the Forum. I am Pete with your co-host Keith. Keith, how's it going today?
It's going good. You know, today is an interesting day. Do
How
you
so?
know what movie came out? Hear me out. 48 years ago. You want to put an age on you?
48 years
48 years ago today. One of the most iconic movies of our entire generation came out.
Well, that wouldn't be your generation, but
Hour. Like, by hour,
that
I
was
mean
before
yours.
both of us were born, but okay.
No, generation, whatever the case
48
is.
years ago?
48
what year
years
would that
ago.
be? That would be like, what are we talking about, 75?
75.
I don't know. Is that when Star Wars came out? I'm
No,
not a huge Star Wars
it's
fan.
actually around the same time
Okay.
frame, but that's not. This is actually a horror movie.
A horror movie.
And don't determine it based on the horror of what you see today in horror, which is just nakedness and death
Well,
and blood, like actual.
My
true
favorite horror was Halloween. Didn't come out till later in the 70s,
No,
I think.
wasn't that? This is even more famous. John Williams composed the music for this movie. Mentioning of Star Wars. John Williams.
I don't know, man.
It is the
Friday the
only
13th?
horror movie that uses only 2 notes to scare its audience.
Jaws? Are you calling
Nah.
Jaws? Jaws a horror movie?
Jaws is classified as a
I don't know
horror
about
movie.
that. I don't know about
It scared generations of kids. I was just listening on the radio today that kids didn't even go into lakes after that movie came out. That's a horror movie,
that.
okay?
Well, they should, but I don't know that I classify it
But
as
yeah,
a horror
48
movie.
years ago today,
Wow.
Jaws came out. You want to talk about age? Woo.
That's a great one.
Yeah, it really is. So,
We're going to need a bigger boat.
so guys, today we're going to talk about some fun stuff. Super excited about sharing what we think are the 5 keys to launching a real estate team. Guys, like if you're thinking, I'm going to start a real estate team, today is the day. I'm starting from scratch. What do I do? Where's your mind at? You can go and watch videos. You can go online and look up different techniques and different thoughts. Like you're going to see a lot of those famous coaches sharing what you should do and how you should do it. We're going to simplify it down to the bare bones of what this thing looks like and actually talk about just 5 simple things that you need to think about when starting, right? And what those tangible items are. So we're going to be moving past the should you start a team or not. We're not talking about that today.
Yeah.
This is you're already in. You've
you've decided.
committed. We are doing a team.
I'm doing this. First thing
Yeah.
you should do is check your head and go, what's wrong with me?
Yeah,
Why am I doing
Why would I like to do this? But no, this is all joking aside. Pete and I, we built a great business. That was our foundational business piece by running a real estate team, which we still have today, and we're growing strong and we love. However, at the beginning stages, there's a lot of work. It's the chaos creation, growth, chaos of everything, right?
Yep.
We've talked about that in the past. So what are those 5 things? When you're stuck in that chaos, what are the 5 things we should focus on? And Pete, let's start it out. What's number 1
So
on our list?
number 1 on our list, and this is near and dear to our hearts, is decide what type of team you want before you even begin. Okay. And
But Pete, I just want a team.
you want a team, right?
I want to be famous.
What the heck does that mean?
You know?
Wait, like, are you like? Think about this, guys. Okay, and I'll tell you why in a minute. Why this is? I say this is near and dear to our heart, because there are just like there are different types of business setups out there. There are different types of team setups. Do you want to be that rainmaker bottle? Do you want this thing to revolve around you? Are you going to be, John Smith real estate team, and everyone's going to know you? You're the rainmaker. Everyone on your team is feeding off of that. The leads are coming in. It's your face out there. That's probably, I would say, the most popular.
I think the easier question just to ask them is, do you still want to be selling real estate in 5 years?
Yeah. What's that goal at the end, right?
I think that's an easier way of looking at it. Like, do you want to continue to sell real estate forever? Like, if your goal is like, I love real estate, I love selling houses, and I love meeting with clients, I want to do it at a higher level, but I still love doing that, then name it after yourself. Build it around you.
Yep.
Build your brand. Like, that's that rainmaker that Pete's describing. it really comes down to it. If you don't like selling real estate very much, but you love running a business,
or you have a goal to not do it forever and you want to build a huge business or whatever your goal is there.
Yeah, you might like selling real estate, but just not like it enough to do 50 transactions a year for the rest of your life, right? And if that's the case, you need to shift what type of real estate team you're going to create. There's two distinct ones. We've talked about that in the past, but basically at the end of the day, do you want to continue to sell for your entire career, or are you trying to build a business and run and manage people, which is a massively different business than just running a team?
Yeah, and for everybody out there, the two different types as we talk about is that Rainmaker model or the enterprise model. The enterprise model that we have built and run, like I say, is you're running that as a business, as a company. It is not our face that's on the signs. It is not our face that is out there. They are not coming because of Pete and Keith, the individuals. They are coming because of the brand, the entity, the business, the team, the culture, everything that goes into it. It is this business that is being built. So those are the two main types, and I think Keith did a good job of describing here. Which way you want to go just depends on what your goals are. And so I think it's important to figure that out at the beginning. And then, yes, guys, those are the two main ones. But remember, there's always, you could do a little boutique, team if you just want to keep it small and just basically have, a couple of agents that you want to work with and you guys are out there just doing your thing. You can specialize in ultra luxury if you go, hey, this is what I want to specialize in. You could go commercial. So those are smaller offshoots. But if we're talking about the big business, the vast majority, those, the enterprise and the Rainmaker, those are the two main ones that you're looking at.
If I were to throw out a third, which we've never really talked about heavily, but we see it out there. It's a completely different purpose. It's almost like a different business. I would say the third option of doing a real estate team, if it's not Rainmaker and you're not trying to do the enterprise model, it's kind of like an offshoot, and it's that wholesale fix and flip investment concept team where it's more you're still building a real estate entity, like you're still growing it, but you're not really trying to represent clients in either capacity. So you kind of are, like, in moments, right? So it's like that hybrid.
I would put that into its own category just because it's like we're talking about here, like your more traditional real estate teams, like you said, residential, retail, type thing. But you're right. Yeah, that is an option. It's just, I think, a different thing.
There are people that like doing like the fix and flip concept of like, I'm doing real estate, I'm going to represent clients, and then when I have good opportunities, I'm going to take stuff down and flip it. And it becomes more of their focus of, I kind of want to just do this full time, and then they shift into that. Usually,
my experience has actually been the other way around. Like, typically those people are doing flips, doing the investments, and then they're coming across clients and they go, oh, well, I guess I should probably represent some people because people keep asking me. Like, that's what I've found more. And so that's why I say I kind of put it in a different thing, because I've found that more often than not every time, but they start off as investors and then kind of end up over there.
I would just say that I think those are probably, if we're really pushing the lines, like the three opportunities there. Really, mainly we talk about those two. Yeah. So let's just go focus on the residential side for the most part. But let's say you're going down one of those routes. It gets into phase two. And this is the difference, is depending on what you choose is really going to determine all the rest of these items of how you're going to really go about doing this, because it vastly changes it. So that's why number one is what number one is. It's not even a number one. It's do this first or you can't do anything else. Right. Because you will run yourself into the ground if you start doing everything else.
Yeah, you're going to be starting again. Like, it's like that. It's like what we talked about a couple podcasts ago, right? If you don't know the destination, then you can't even draw out the map because you don't even know where you're going. Correct. So that's why you got to figure out what that goal is at the beginning, because otherwise, how are you going to find the route if you don't even know where you're trying to go?
It kind of like you're just taking off from the Atlantic and you're like, I think the world is flat. We're going to find the end of the world.
We'll figure it out.
You'll roll into something. Yeah. So you don't want to do that.
Yeah, you could. I just don't recommend it.
You die, end up. Yeah. Like, that's how it works. So number two, this one's pretty extreme, guys. It's that next big step of that planning, that growth phase. Okay. So it's laying out all of the jobs, roles, requirements of the team choice that you chose. Okay. So for instance, if you chose Rainmaker model and you're going to be the head dog, you're going to be the one doing all the sales, your roles to support you are vastly different than if you want to start an enterprise model, work your way out of real estate, and you're going to need more management, more help, more control of certain situations and processes. Because you're not the figurehead in that role, your roles that you need to hire are vastly different. But you have to have, like we talked about, you want that roadmap. This is part of painting that picture with the end goal in mind.
Yeah, and just to be clear too, it's like at this point, like you're not hiring anybody or doing any of these, but what you're trying to lay out is what's all the stuff that needs to be done. And if you don't think about that up front, you're going to constantly run into things and go, oh crap, nobody's doing that. Oh man, I forgot about that. So that's why we say this is going to constantly change and evolve, obviously, as you're growing. But what you want to start out with is that basic plan to go, hey, what's all the things that need to get done? Who's handling some of this marketing? Who's going to handle this transaction coordination? Well, at the beginning, it's you doing everything. You're
Enjoy.
all those roles. Have fun. But the point is you still want to know, okay, somebody's going to be doing the transaction coordination. Somebody's going to be in charge of, social media. Somebody's going to be in charge of helping train agents. Yep. Again, the beginning, that's you, but it helps to identify these are the things that I need to be doing. These are the things that as I grow, we'll be putting in there. And obviously this continues to evolve, but have a little bit of a layout to know. Otherwise you're running blind. You're just out there shooting from the hip and just trying to figure it out. So just lay out that basic. You don't have to go super detailed at this point. You don't have to, put a whole structure in place because still it's just you at the beginning, but you want to know.
And it probably will change.
Yeah. And you want to know everything that you're trying to do.
So that being said, to give you a few options, kind of what we're describing, Pete mentioned a few here and there: recruiting, transaction coordination, management, either with sales or general management, administrative duties, right? Like there's going to be a lot of stuff that just requires certain tasks. Training. Like you're going to need someone that's going to be doing the training if you're going to be coaching agents. If it's just you, then you need to train yourself. Like somehow you need to go and grow and learn and have research. So those are just a few of those roles that we're describing that you need to write down. There's probably like 10 to 12 that you need to get on paper.
Depending on what you're doing. Yeah,
absolutely. And it just depends on the route that you want to go. All right, so I was going to say this kind of takes us into number 3 a little bit.
So this goes, you can see, guys, they all kind of build on each other and make sense. So number 3, okay, so Keith, why don't you tell us, I know this is something we were briefly chatting about before we got started here. I'll let you get going here and start off with what is number 3 on our list.
So if you look at the landscape of teams in our industry, let's just start off with that. Look at all the best, most successful teams out there. You can look at ours if you want, but you can look at a lot of people in the industry, and there's so many good teams. If you look deep enough, you'll notice that every single one of those teams, every one of them, including ours, there's a little niche or a little in or a little different or differentiator that makes them unique or offers a little bit different play in all of them. Or they have a connection or a relationship with an entity or support that none of the other ones have, or they have different variations of it. And so what I'm describing is you have to find your niche, your differentiator, what I would like to call your value proposition.
Yep.
If you don't have a strong value prop, why would anyone follow you?
Yeah,
you can't just be, I'm an agent. Like that's not your value prop. That's your job.
Right.
You got to be able to do that. What makes you different?
Yeah, and you've got to be able to answer the question, why should I join your team? Why? Like that's a fundamental thing when you're building that team that you need to know. What is it that we, to quote another movie line, what exactly would you say it is that you do here? Like, you know what I mean? Like, you have to know.
I'm a people person.
Exactly. It's like, okay, great. You've got a team. One of the, just to take the Phoenix metro area, I don't know, one of 2,000 that are here or whatever ridiculous number it is at this point. So why should I join your team?
Yeah.
Like what's the value proposition? What is it that you do? And this I don't want you guys to get so caught up in this or just thinking like, man, I don't have anything super unique. Keith laid it out there for you guys. Is there a variation on something? Like, there's nothing new under the sun, but do you do stuff, a particular thing better? Yeah. You do it a little bit in a different way? Like you said, do you have a certain types of connections? Is there a certain culture you're building? Is there something that you're helping? Do you specialize in helping those new agents get rolling right away? It could be any number of 1,000 different things, but you have to know what that is. And it doesn't have to be like, hey, I build 3D houses, like something just completely out of left field. But there has to be some sort of differentiation.
We
there.
see a lot of them, like lead source is a very common one that you see out in the marketplace, where like you'll have an ISA team, or you'll have an in with this relationship, and you'll create leads that way. That's a start. But I had a question come from a team leader, I think about a year ago now, and I was having a conversation with them, and I was helping grow their team, mentoring them, and helping shape what their model was. And we got to a point where he only had a couple agents, and he was chatting with me about, okay, well, I just can't fathom charging these splits. Like, I can't figure out a way. Like, why would an agent pay this? And like, what would I be doing to deserve a compensation? Which is a very valid conversation, right?
Yeah.
But you guys got to think about it even to the finest details. If you're teaching, training, holding hands, or keeping someone accountable, that's valuable, even in itself. So if your skill set or what differentiates you from the rest of the industry is, I'm really good at helping people, or teaching people, or helping people reach their goals, or training a specific topic, or I'm really good at helping people generate business. Like, it doesn't matter. It could be that finite, but it's still worth something to someone else. If someone would pay you to just help them, then you have fundamental foundations for a team if you want it.
Yeah, it's the same reason that you would hire a coach or a trainer in any point in life, because that person is going to help you reach your goals faster, better, more efficiently, become better at whatever you're trying to do. Whatever the case is,
need help.
That person is going to help you get there, so you hire them. So it's a similar thing here.
I think the difference is those variations or differentiators, it determines the size at which you could get, right? Like, anybody that's good at helping or teaching can probably hire 2 or 3 agents and create a small team or a tight-knit group of people and build culture and grow a team. I think almost anyone that is any type of leader out there can do that. The difference is, if you're talking about running a team of 5 versus running a team of 100, you have to level up so much between 5 and 100 as a person, through character, through just business as in general, to get to that next point. So the whole point of the value prop conversation of like determining what that is, you got to start somewhere. Yep. So find your initial value props, work on that, but your value prop will change over time. You're going to create relationships you never knew you would have. You're going to run into a builder and build a relationship with, like, there's going to be so many different things about in this business as you grow.
Once you get that action going. And I think that last point before we move on, like you said, is you need to keep leveling up as an individual. And I say this to people all the time. I've been in the business now, 19 years, and I do more reading, more learning, go to more trainings, are part of more groups, have more coaches and mentors now than I ever have. And this is the longest I've ever been doing it. And why? It's because we need to keep getting better. We need to keep leveling up so that we can continue to improve our team, our business, what we're doing. And so I'm actually doing more now on that front than ever before.
I mean, if you think about it in leverage, we just paid to be a part of a private mastermind room to help us continue to level up and grow as individuals and entrepreneurs. Yep. Like, it changes your landscape dramatically. And we talked about this all the time. Some of the best athletes in the world have more coaches than anyone else.
The better they get, the more coaches they have,
like,
right?
What do you mean?
That's
you
what
know
we're
how to
talking
do it.
about.
Like,
right.
you don't need a coach. Like, but LeBron's got a foot coach. Like, how to
He's got like 12 coaches
or
something ridiculous.
It's insane, but that is required. You talk about Tiger Woods. I was just reading about Tiger Woods and his career and the amount of coaches. He's the best golfer that's ever played. Mm-hmm. And yet he needed coaching more than anyone else did.
Yeah. And think about it. The higher and higher levels you get at, that makes more sense. Because if you want to talk about golf, if I'm shooting a 150, okay.
It happens quite often.
my golf game is so bad that I could probably watch a YouTube video and get it down to 140. Like, it's still horrible, but I improved. But like, the better and better you get, the more you're refining those skills and learning and working on stuff. Anyways, we don't want to beat that thing to death, but I think everybody gets the point.
That Pete needs to watch more golf YouTube videos
I need
to
more
get
golf
it down.
YouTube videos.
No, but I think that's awesome, guys. Just take that in. Write your value prop, even if it's the smallest of value props right now. Just know that you got to grow on it and scale it and build it out. But you can't start a team if you have no value.
Yep.
Plain and simple.
So now you've decided what type of team you want. You've kind of laid out those initial tasks and roles that you're needing to do for this, at least at that basic level at the beginning. You know what your value prop is. Now you want to build the basic systems, processes, trainings,
Time to go to work.
and schedule. Right. You've actually got to put that value prop and those things that you laid out and make them tangible, right? This is where the rubber meets the road.
This is what you would call your wireframe of your business, if you will. It's putting the border on your puzzle piece. Like, you have to have your boxes, you have to have your paths, your SOPs. Like, if you don't have them, you have nothing to teach to, train to, grow to, nothing. You're kind of freelance.
So the perfect example is, okay, you get a new agent, they come in there the first day and they're like, so now what?
What
and
exactly
then you're
do we
like,
do here?
I don't know. Like, you know what I mean?
You
So-
tell me. What do you want to learn?
Yeah,
Like, that doesn't
so
work.
let's stare at each other for a while. Like, that's what we're talking about is, okay, well, you know, here's what we're doing to prospect. Here's what our lead generation system is. This is, once we have a contract, here is our process and our system for that. This is our follow-up schedule. This is when we're doing training. Like, whatever it is, you've got to put these things in place. Again, at the beginning, just at a basic level, but you've got to have, like he said, a framework, a wireframe, some outline of what's happening here.
Here's a couple items that you guys can take note of that makes sense. You need a framework for lead generation. A really easy one that's already, and you guys, you don't have to reinvent the wheel. Like, there's tools and stuff out there already with that framework. You just need to leverage them and kind of put the details to it. So, for instance, you don't need to build a CRM. There's already CRMs out there. You just go get one or adopt one or figure out what one will work for where your team's at and the size that it's at.
There could be free ones at a brokerage that you're
Correct.
at or whatever.
100%. So the concept is, though, you still need one. You still need that framework, and that's the starting place of that. Same thing with training.
And before we get off of that, Keith, hey, what's the best CRM? Which one should I use? We get all these questions.
Flip a coin, whatever you like best.
What are you gonna actually use?
Yeah.
What are you gonna stick with? Like, it doesn't matter. Just something that you're actually going to use. Like,
we've talked about the 3 or 4 things that's required in a CRM, but at the end of the day, it's what do you find yourself actually using? Because if you don't use it, it doesn't make a difference.
Yeah, right, exactly.
So CRM is a good example. When you onboard a new agent to your team, do you have a process or a system for that phase? Do you have any idea what you're onboarding them to or what items they're being added to? I think the other big one that you guys can start to think about is just a general schedule. What does your week look like as an agent on the team and as a leader? Like those two. If you just start there, are they going to trainings throughout your team? Are they working alongside you hand in hand? Are they shadowing people? Like, what is their process?
Right. Are they going on appointments with you? Are you guys going to do open houses together? What does that look like?
And it'll change as your team changes and the type of team you chose. But the whole point is, if you have no schedule, everybody's flying blind. You have to have work hours. You have to have things in place.
And people don't feel connected. It's hard to build that culture when you guys have, hey, this is what we do. This is our team. So think about it like any other. It's like a sports team. Hey, Keith, you know, our softball team, we're practicing on Tuesdays and Thursdays, and we're playing on Saturdays. Friday afternoons, for those that can make it, we're doing batting practice. Like, that's a perfect example of what I'm talking about with a very basic outline of this is our team.
Our softball team would be much better if we had that structure.
That's
Right
not
now,
what
so
we
here's
do.
a good example. This is a great example, Pete. Right now, our softball schedule is we have games on Saturdays. We'll see you there 10 minutes before the game.
Sometimes we go drinking before the game.
Possibly
Probably not
sober.
the good idea.
I don't know.
Yeah.
How do you think our games turn out, Pete? How many games a year do we win because of that?
Not so many.
Not a lot. So if you'd like to win your real estate team, you practice, you do the other things, you have a good schedule. You don't just show up for game day and show up to a listing appointment 5 minutes before drunk. It doesn't work out too well. So
Yeah, I don't recommend that.
Don't recommend that at all. But you kind of get the point of you have systems, you have schedules, you have processes, even if they're basic. You
Yep.
just got to have something in play or you can't follow it. There's no roadmap there.
That's it. So now we're getting to step
Number
number
5.
5, right? So we just said rubber meets the road here. You're building this stuff out, these tangible things. Number 5, Keith, finish us off with what we got here.
Okay, this is kind of a double-edged sword. It's like a 5.5, 5.5, 5.6, whatever you want to do.
They're
put
related.
Together. They're pretty much the same thing. Guys, remember, when you run a real estate team, recruiting becomes the lead generation of that team. If
Yep.
you're going to be doing real estate your whole life, just you, then you're not running a team. You're just doing real estate. It takes agents to build a team. You can't have a team of one. Like, it doesn't work that way, right? So you have to have people. So recruiting is going to happen. And that's the final piece. When you have your value prop, you know what type of team you want to run. You have systems and processes. At some point, you got to be like, okay, I guess I got to start interviewing people or I got to start hiring people to my team. So recruiting becomes that number 5. And it's what that fuel of growing your team is.
Right. And so, yeah, you've got the first 5 steps. Remember, this is for starting. So we're talking
Correct.
about you just
This
coming
is not
into it.
growing.
This is not growing. This is not the end all be all, but you go, hey, what are those starting pieces? How do I get out of the blocks? How does this thing go? These are the steps that we laid out. Decide what you want to do. Lay out all those tasks and roles. Make sure you know your value proposition or create one. If you don't know what it is, figure it out. Building those systems, processes, and schedule. And then you're going to go out there, start recruiting, start building that team. And that will lead to the other part that we talked about there.
Just to finish that out, recruiting solves issues and creates new ones.
Yeah, that's for sure.
And you have to understand that. Like, you recruit so that you can figure out what is broken. All your processes and systems you just set up, you really don't know if they're broken until you put an agent through one. And you're like, oh, I forgot that. I forgot that. I forgot that. So remember, that recruiting is your tester. It's the way you're actually going to grow and build your business right. And you got to be able to recruit. That being said, as you recruit, that last piece is you're going to need some help because you can't do it alone. You can't wear all of those hats the whole time and build a successful team. No one's done that. No one will ever do it. It just doesn't exist. There's not enough time in the day. So that part step 5 alongside recruiting is what that first hire is going to be. Who you hear it all the time in talks, and Keller Williams has been pushing that for a long, long time of like their main piece of growing a team. Like, what's that first hire?
Right.
And they have this detailed plan. I'm using Keller Williams as an example because they made starting a real estate team famous a decade ago by this is the only way to do it. This is the right way to do it. And we're here to say that there is no right way to do it. It's what's the right way for you. But the whole point is that first hire, regardless of who's sharing it with you, is still vastly important.
Right.
You need to have one.
And it's going to be different depending on, if we go all the way back to the top, what type of team are you starting?
Yeah.
It's not going to necessarily be the same first hire. Like, if you're doing the Rainmaker, yeah, that transaction coordinator might need to be your first one. You know what I mean? Like,
because you need support to do your business.
correct, because you're focusing on getting out there and doing that business.
And you might only have one agent. Do you really need to hire a trainer with
Right.
one agent? No, you don't.
Or do you need an assistant at that point, or do you really need somebody to help you take off that load on the back end?
Yeah.
For example, so depending on what your team looks like, obviously the type of team you're starting, but then you as an individual, what's your value prop and what's the team setup, it's going to vary a little bit there, but it's going to be some sort of help. It might be, getting that first help with actually helping the agents. Maybe you're getting a whole bunch of agents in there, and now you really need somebody to help answer those day-to-day questions and help with that training piece. Maybe that is the most important piece for you on that first one. Like, you'll figure it out because maybe I'm outsourcing my transaction coordination right now because I want to bring this piece in-house, and that's my first hire.
Yeah, it quite possibly. Or you might love transaction coordination, and you might love, that's what you do at night. You're like, I love going through the files and cleaning them all up and making sure they look good. Or transaction coordination might not be in your value prop for your team. You might actually outsource that back to your agents. Your agents might be doing their own. So you don't need to hire that if they're doing their own business anyways.
Exactly.
So there's so much there. I think the biggest piece is, what are you the worst at, or what do you hate doing the most? Like, look to that, because that's going to help you scale.
Yep.
So for instance, if you are a Rainmaker model team, lead generation might actually be the first task you want. Maybe you're good at transaction coordination and your admin duties, but like you hate calling people or you hate generating leads or doing that initial stage. Well, maybe an ISA is your first piece.
It's going to be tough to be a rainmaker if you hate it. But
Yeah, correct.
pick the wrong one in that case, but whatever.
Quite possibly, but maybe the cold call approach has never been your thing. Like maybe you go that route. Who knows? The whole point is, if you don't evaluate your value and the structure and all of those steps 1 through 4, you won't really know who to hire, who you're going after, your demographic, and what you need.
And remember, the last thing I'll say here, guys, is this is going to change. So again, this is for the initial phase. Once you get a certain number of agents, you're going to reevaluate these. Things are going to change. You're going to add and subtract or pivot. Once you have a certain amount of people on the staff, same thing. So remember, this is a process that you go through. This is the starter stage, if you will, to get things going. So hopefully you guys got some value out of that today. And subscribe. Don't forget, subscribe. Keith, sign us off over here.
Yes. Send all your questions to questions@kpeliteaz.com and follow all of our channels at the KP Elite. We'd love to have you guys subscribe and follow and see all our future videos. We'll see you guys next time.
Thank you, guys.